Well, everybody, I can't tell you how excited I am to be here, and there are a lot of reasons for that. First, I recognize what a big day in your life this is as far as all of you go, and for me to share that is a very big deal. I also have some of my guys on the football team that are graduating today. That's a big deal for me as well, and my granddaughter is graduating. Bottom line, though, for me, I truly, truly love Coastal Carolina, and back in 2012, when I wanted to come back to football as a head coach, there was not one university in the country that believed in me enough to give me that opportunity. But Dr. DeCenzo did at Coastal Carolina. And Dave, again, thank you for that. And I'll always remember that. That, to me, is a big, big deal. I mentioned my granddaughter is graduating as well. And she loves Coastal now, but that's happened over the span of the last few years. And when she was getting ready, thinking about college, when she was a senior in high school, she really wasn't sure where she was going to go. And she had called me and said, Grandpa, you've been in education a good portion of your life. I need some help on this. This is a big decision. And I said, Cariana, you're 17 years old. You've worked hard. You've done a great job. You are woman enough to make this decision on your own. You don't need me. This is something you could do. What other schools are you thinking about? I said, well, Coastal Carolina, of course, and Boston College. I said, okay. A few days later, she calls me again and says, Grandpa, I'm struggling with this thing. I got to make the right decision. I said, Cariana, you're good. Don't worry about it. You are woman enough to make the right decision here. A suggestion. Think about this. Write down the pros and cons of each school on a legal pad. Think about how you feel when you're going to bed at night. The school you feel good about in the morning, that's the school you're supposed to go to. And remember, you're woman enough to make the decision on your own. You're going to make the right decision. So the next day, Cariana calls me. And I said, she said, I've done everything you said. I said, good. I said, you feel good about your choice? She goes, yes. I said, where are you going to school? She goes, Boston College. I said, oh. I said, why are you going to Boston College? She said, well, I grew up in Vermont, and I like New England. I kind of like the idea of Boston. I like the colors, the maroon and gold. So I kind of feel more comfortable there. I said, well, okay, I'm sure you've thought that through. But I said, you're aware that at Coastal Carolina, we've got the Edwards College for Humanity and Arts, which has one of the finest theater programs in the nation. You recognize, by the way, also that Coastal has the University College, which is a pioneer in terms of interdisciplinary studies. Oh, by the way, you take a look at what Coastal has just done over the span of the last 10 years, like literally, and what they're going to do in the next 10 years. Greatness is part of Coastal Carolina's destiny. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this either. We've got 73 majors, we got 66 minors, we got 22 graduate programs, and we got 80 partnerships with international institutions. Oh, and on top of that, we happen to have a national championship baseball team, and by the way, probably the best-looking football coach in the country. Clearly, you're not woman enough to make this decision. You're going to Coastal Carolina. I grew up in a gang area, Dyton Street section in New York City. My mom and dad were immigrants. My mother never finished high school. My father never finished 8th grade. I was the oldest. 7 of us lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. Two of my best friends got killed in high school that I was with every day in grammar school. One died of a drug overdose. The other was killed by the police robbing a liquor store. Had I not been playing high school football, I definitely would have been with a guy robbing a liquor store. I wound up becoming a father, and when I went to college, I had to support my wife, I had to support my daughter, Cariana's mom, and I had to pay every dime of my education. I graduated, I was your age. I'd gone through a lot up until then, and I learned a lot because of that. And then I think about the 2 decades that I've spent in football, athletics, and education, and then over 2 decades that I've spent in the business world. I really believe that I've got something to share with all of you today. There are 4 values, 4 principles that I want to share that I believe you think about these. They are principles that if you live these things, it will make a difference in your life. It will give you a competitive advantage when you graduate and you begin this next phase of your life. And at the end of the day, it will set a good foundation upon which to build a leadership base later on. So these are those 4. The first one, and this is critically important. It's about a principle where you stand on your own 2 feet. You accept responsibility for yourself, you treat others with dignity and respect, and you live with the consequences of your actions. Now, I've raised 3 daughters, 1 son, 2 stepsons. That was the #1 principle that my family was raised on. My football career the first time around, that was the #1 standard we had. In my entire business career, for any leadership job that I had, that was the standard that I expected my leadership team to live up to. And it is absolutely the foundation upon which we build our football program here at Coastal Carolina. Now, we've got about 125 guys. We've got another 25 interns, analysts, coaches, et cetera. So that's about 150 males. So that whole concept became BAM, became be a man. But be a man is not some tough macho thing, nor is it meant to be sexist. I just happen to have 150 guys, and BAM worked pretty well for that. But being a real man, being a real woman, being a real leader is someone that stands on their own 2 feet, takes responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and lives with the consequences of your actions. Now, when you begin with that as a base, you've got to be aware of some other things. And it's not uncommon as you go through college, you're finishing up high school, you're going through college, sometimes there's a little bit of tension at home. And that's something that I wanted to talk about, because part of your responsibility is kind of understand that, not just for where you are now with regards to your families, but because of the families you're going to have one of these days. So I'd ask you, now we're not going to have time for you to raise your hand and have big conversations on this, but how many of you, you're all graduating, you're graduating today, how many of you were smarter or cooler or wiser when you graduated from high school than you are today? All right, well, 99% of you feel pretty confident that you're smarter, wiser today. Now, what's the reason for that? Your experience. You've gone through so many things over the span of the last few years. You've learned so much. Well, again, I'm asking you to keep this in perspective. You're not yet your parents' age, but your parents have been your age. They have lived in your shoes. They understand your pressures. They understand what peer pressure is. They understand what's going on with regards to drug and sex and alcohol and whatever else it might be. And how ironic is it sometimes where everybody sitting here would acknowledge that, you know, for me personally, I am better off and wiser because of my experience over the last 4 years. But sometimes when we think about our parents, we think, you know what, they don't quite get it. Well, think about that for a moment. They have been in your shoes. So they do get it. They understand it. So when there's a little tension at home, keep that one in mind. Second thing is, remember, BAM, taking responsibility for yourself. The most important job parents have is to raise their children. And number 3, at the end of the day, there is nobody, I repeat this, there is nobody that loves you more than what your family does and your parents do. And there's only one thing we as parents care about, and that is that our children and our loved ones are happy. And sometimes, because of the experiences we've gone through, we can tell that maybe you're going down a path where the achievement of that happiness may not be as easy as we'd like it to be. So at the end of the day, when there's some tension at home, think about those 3 things and try to put that in perspective. Second principle is dedication. Dedication is the desire to work as hard as you possibly can to be the best you can be. Now, it's not about being number 1. And this is not about trying to impress other people. The only person you have to impress on this one is yourself. It's yourself. But it's you that got to work hard. It's you that has to put in the time. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. This is something you've got to go after. Now, so for many of you that already have jobs, a couple of tips. Number 1, if you're going to have an impact and you're going to be the best you can be, don't be afraid of going early. Don't be afraid to stay late. Make it a point to ask good questions and make sure you're listening to what's going on. And then remember this. The way you will be evaluated is not going to be on your looks. It's not going to be on your degree. It's going to be how you handle yourself under stress. That will be true in your entire life. You'll be evaluated by how well you handle yourself under stress and under pressure. Now, for those of you that don't have a job yet, I'd ask you to spend a lot of time doing your homework, doing some research on this. You want the job that is the right fit for you, not because your parents like it. It's because it's the right fit for you. So you want to understand the skill sets that are necessary for success in that particular field. That's what you want to be able to do. And once you understand that and you line yourself up to the type of field, career path you want, you're a big step in the right direction. But you still got to get a job, and you still got to have an interview. And interviews you just don't show up for. You got to prepare for them. You got to think about them. Now, I'm going to tell you the one question I have asked in an interview. And I only asked one question. I'm going to share this with you. I will kind of role play for a minute. I'm interviewing all of you. Here's the question. I can hire anyone I want to. Anyone I want to. I've already read your resume. Don't tell me about your resume. Tell me why I should hire you. That's it. That's the only question. Now you start to be, well, you know, I work hard, I'm a team player. Well, you got to differentiate yourself. You think anybody else is going to say that? Yeah, everybody else is going to say that. You start to talk about like what you did in school. Well, I just told you not to look at your resume. So think back to the skill sets that that particular career needs for success and start to demonstrate in that interview how you have those skill sets where you can make a difference for them. You answer that question right, the probability that you're going to get that job is extraordinary. Third value, third principle, courage. Courage. You've got to do what you believe is right. Now, one of the things that bugs me a lot of times, and it's true in the business world, it's true in education, it's true in the military, it's true all over the place. You know, we make a big deal about kind of like every little dot I and T dot I dotted T crossed, and the reality is it's not the letter of the law that we've got to follow, it's the spirit of the law. You cannot legislate ethics. You cannot legislate character. You cannot do that. That comes from within. And you know what? It's not that complicated. You don't have to read 75 pages of notes. It's 85 rules. The reality is everyone in here knows the difference between right and wrong. Everyone in here knows that. And if you have the guts to always do what you believe is right, then you do what's right and you don't do what's wrong. It's that simple. It's that simple. Now, in your own lives, a couple of thoughts. For those of you that come from good, solid family backgrounds, good homes, well, again, congratulations. You're getting your degree, but you've been given a pretty nice advantage to begin with. You've got to appreciate that. You've got to understand what you have. And then when you go out, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your loved ones to give it your very, very, very best. Now, for those of you that didn't have that advantage, for those of you that came from broken homes, a single parent, perhaps a parent in jail, a parent with an addiction, a difficult socioeconomic background, well, that family is always going to be your family. And that community or home is always going to be your home or neighborhood. But you have already taken yourself out of that environment. You are graduating from coastal Carolina. You know what? You faced adversity and you are graduating. You are out of that environment. You've got the ability to wind up doing something absolutely extraordinary and special with your life. And you know something? You have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. That's okay. You deserve that. You deserve that. But go out. Don't ever make it. Don't use an excuse for like what kind of background you had. You graduated from coastal Carolina. Go out there and make something yourself. And then the last one is love. Now, this is probably the most important. I'm not talking about making love. I'm talking about the power of love, okay? So love to me is truly when you have the well-being of others at heart. And you see it a lot of times on a college campus. You know, the friendships you make, whether they be with your classmates, your teammates, your faculty, whomever it might be, you know, there's this feeling of love there. Again, your emphasis is the concern for others. You certainly see that in sports teams, but I think the place where you easily see it the most is in a family. And I want to share a couple personal experiences with regards to my life that are very, very real. And I told you the background I grew up in. I was a gang kid. When I was 13 years old, my mother had to go in the hospital. It was the first time she ever went in the hospital. And I saw my dad crying. Now, my dad died a few years ago of Alzheimer's in his 80s. I've never seen my dad crying in his life. Now, remember, 7 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. He doesn't have a lot of privacy. But my father's crying. And I asked him, I said, Dad, what's the matter? And he said, I'm worried about Mom. So I went to bed that night, and I was really, if Dad's crying about this, something's going on here. Mom's got to be sick. There's a problem. Now, I tell you, my mother was an Irish immigrant. She was an immigrant from Ireland. Her whole life were the 5 of us. And I think I'm a tough guy. And it hit me that I might lose my mother. And I never, ever told my mother that I loved her. And I remember praying that night and making a big deal about it. I said, God, you know, if you bring her back, you know, I promise that I'll deliver on that. She did come back healthy. I did deliver on that. Fast forward a while. Go back to 9/11. Now, the World Trade Centers, my apartment where I live, a couple hundred yards from the World Trade Center, a couple hundred yards. And where I worked at the time, Merrill Lynch, a couple hundred yards. I had 3 of my kids in New York City at that time, and 2 of them worked for Merrill Lynch. I had just taken the job at Ameritrade. So that's in Omaha. So I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm watching these things take place. It's a difficult thing, but I can't do anything about it, and I've got other responsibilities. I've got to make sure our employees are okay and our clients' assets are okay. So we go in emergency mode. But all this stuff's going on in New York, and I've got my family there and loved ones and friends, and I get a call from my daughter, Kim, who said, Dad, I talked to Karen and Kevin, who worked at Merrill, and they're both okay. I know you got a lot of things going. I just wanted you to know that. I said, Kim, thank you so much for making the call. A couple of hours later, she calls me and says, Dad, I talked to Kara. She's evacuated. She's in Jersey City. She's okay. She's stressed out, but okay. But the last time anybody saw Kevin, he was going over to the site to see if he could help out. Dad, have you heard from Kevin? No. I said, no, Kim. So the towers had already collapsed. And I went through that entire day thinking that there was a very, very real possibility I had lost my son. And as difficult as that was to go through, there was a sense of inner peace that I actually had. And I asked myself, if I've lost Kevin, is there anything else I want to tell him? And I said, everything I ever want to tell him, I've already told him. He knows how I feel. I've already told him that. And I learned that from my experience that I had with my mom when I was 13 years old. So the power of love, remember, it's not about you. It's about others. It's always about others. So for me, I said in the beginning, this is an incredible honor for me. And it's one that I'm humbled with, and I will always, always, always appreciate. It's a true honor. For all of you, you are graduating from Coastal Carolina. You are well prepared to go out in this next phase of your life. And if you take what you've learned here, and you take the value of your coastal degree, and you try to couple that with the power of love, really the concern of others, the courage, the guts to do what you really believe is right, the dedication, where you're going to give it everything you've got to be the best you can be. And at the end of the day, believe in the BAM concept. You're going to stand on your own 2 feet. You're going to take responsibility for yourself. You're going to treat others with dignity and respect, and you're going to live with the consequences of your actions. You are ready to go. So go out there, make a difference, have an impact on others, differentiate yourself from others, and always, always, always remember, you're always going to be a Chanticleer. Thank you. Congratulations, and God bless.